So as we're wrapping up the day today, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming, everybody who attended virtually, everybody who attended in person. We have a really fun session presented by Canadian Retinoblastoma Society, which is going to be a community gathering right after this. So there's still more fun to come. But while I have the mic for one last time this weekend, I wanted to thank you guys for attending. I want to thank all our speakers who attended and shared their knowledge and experiences with us. And I wanted to just share that through listening to our keynotes, both Terry and Francine, who shared motivational stories and their experiences, really empowered me to think about how do I participate differently and not stop at barriers. And when I am confronted with a barrier, instead of just thinking, nope, this is not going to work for me, I'm going to rethink how can I do this differently, or how can I share my message differently to be heard. So I've come away thinking about not stopping when I'm confronted with a barrier and wanting to, I keep moving forward. So I hope everybody has taken away something from our keynotes and is now motivated. And with all the lovely knowledge we've received from our panels and learning about research and priorities and where we're moving with them, to be empowered to participate and join and figure out a way that you see yourself fitting in. So I would love to continue that discussion. If anybody feels that they want to participate and want to figure out how, you could always email that retinoblastoma.research email where you received all your information for the symposium, and I'll be in touch with you through there, or we can have a discussion about what your interests are and how they fit in with CRAB. So I'd be happy to continue that conversation. And let's continue having these conversations. During our breakout session, great conversations. I'm sure there was some in the priority 1 group. So let's continue working on these and keep coming together and talking about it. And that's how we're all going to be moving forward. So thank you guys for being here. And I would like to invite Terry, who was our first speaker, and now he's going to give some final words on his thoughts for his first symposium attendance this year.
Thank you, Ivana. And it's probably not going to be my last. First, not last. This has been a very inspiring and very educational. And I've come to discover that there's so many stories, and every story has similarities, but they're all individual and all special. And it makes it important for always to remember that from a clinician's perspective, from a family member, from no matter what level or where we are in life, it's really important to remember the individual. However, or in addition to that, I should say, is that what I've seen here and what I've experienced comes from the heart, from everyone in the room, from the, as I say in Newfoundland, from the shoe straps, right? And so it's about community collaboration, and the community being, being all of us together and making sure, as Ivana likes to say, it's up to you. So if it's up to you, that means it's up to me, and that goes to it's up to us. Just discover. I've known this. The last session we were in, we're for the priority 1, and talking about early intervention. And as I was listening, lots of good data, but even better than that, the wisdom was in the room to bring that data down to the human level and talk about it from what's the challenge of a mom or a dad or a grandparent? What are the challenges? What are they feeling? And as someone commented yesterday, even though the child is going through something, sometimes so obviously there has to be compassion for the child, but sometimes the family is forgotten or overlooked because of that little child. And I don't mean that it's done that way necessarily, but as was mentioned yesterday, it brought it home to me, is that what's happening at that time when a little child is going through all the procedures and the testing and so on, the parents are living that story. The families are living that story. So really important. And that led me to realize this afternoon, I do a lot of work with veterans and with the military and so on. And I've had numerous stories of mothers who knew before it happened that in their mind, their little boy or their little girl wasn't coming home. They knew it before it happened. I wrote a song about it called Portraits of Honor. And so they knew this. And then on top of that, the people who've come home, the servicemen and women who come home, a lot of them, the mothers know that suicide might be coming up if something isn't done. So that's kind of intervention as well. But to bring it back to this situation, we heard two strong, wonderful, heart-wrenching stories about mothers who knew their child had something serious, and the information wasn't in their hands. The information wasn't in the hands of the physicians and the specialists to know that, hey, number one, we've got to go further with this, because it was an emotional mother maybe who was sitting there saying, there's something going on here. And she knew. Message here, listen to the mothers in addition to other bits of information. That's critical. And just a couple of more points from all of this. So I mentioned community collaboration, which is important. And as Ivana likes to say, again, it's up to us, up to you, up to me. And I'd like to finish by saying that, well, two things. One, every life is a life worth celebrating. And as traumatic as it may feel and be, if it's there, it is. And I yesterday when I finished speaking, I thought, was I a little too cavalier? Was I just throwing this away, being too lighthearted about it? Because I've learned to cope with it. And I have to remember that even though I've learned to cope with it, and it's easy for me, and my parents had their story, and I had to learn about their story as well, but it's easy for me, but you're in a different place right now. So I've got to acknowledge that, and I'm glad I have this opportunity to do that, because you have a different experience right now. But here's what I can guarantee you. If you don't overprotect your child, if you allow them to bump into walls, sometimes in schools I say, hey, you see this dent here? That was from radiation. It wasn't from a bump in the wall. Now, in the meantime, I've hit lots of walls, right? But again, if I sound cavalier there, it's not. It's a way to lighten things up. But you have to live through all of this, and please know that every life is worth celebrating, and every life is worth taking advantage of. And I've also come to another realization. I said only two things. There's three. I talked about being a survivor yesterday, and I was debating, well, what's the difference between a survivor and I will now say that I confidently say I'm a survivor who knows how to thrive, right? So I'm with all of you survivors who said, what do you mean, Terry? Well, I'm in your group now. I'm with you, but I'll never stop suggesting that we should still thrive beyond that, survive and thrive, and make sure your child does the same thing. And as they learn about their story and learn about their condition, make sure that it doesn't become a fear, a piece of thing that's in the back of their mind that scares them to death. It's just something that's there, and deal with it, do the best we can, and get on with life, with love, with understanding, with compassion. And here's the last thing. My dad, and I didn't know this, for many years. I was sitting on an airplane with him one time. He came out with me. I was doing a school tour out west, and we worked for 3 months together. And we're on our way back from Vancouver on a red eye. And we both had a little dram of scotch in our hands. We were chatting away. And my dad said to me, "Terry, you know what?" I said, "What, Dad?" He said, "All my life, I felt guilty about being the carrier of this retinol, this RB gene." I'm sorry, I'm getting choked up here. So he said, I've felt guilty all my life about this. Now, I'm 50 years old at this point. My dad, retired, and I said, "Gee, Dad, I didn't know that. I didn't know you felt guilty about it." He said, "I don't anymore." And I said, "Hey, Dad, is it the scotch or just something else?" He said, "No, Terry," he said, "all my life I felt that way. But after being out on the road with you for 3 months here," he said, "I know now when you talk about having your blindness can be transformed into a gift. I know what you're talking about." I said, "Dad, you know what? This is a gift that you and Mother gave me and Tony and Chris and Lisa, who lost an eye. You gave this gift to us. You gave this by sending me to the school for the blind. You gave this by letting me bump into those walls, letting me walk on stilts when I was a kid, letting me dive off diving boards. You gave me this gift. So I'm glad. I'm so happy to know that you don't feel guilty anymore." So, sorry. That was for my dad. So those of you who are harboring or living this feeling of guilt, find out what the gifts can be. And with all the good science and medical treatment and the wonderful, loving people that created this organization, you're loved, you're embraced, feel it and live it. And please find ways to deal with that guilt and toss it away, replace it with something else. I was only supposed to be 3 minutes, sorry. So God bless, thank you. And thanks, Crab.
Okay, thank you so much, Terry. And we have our community gathering. If I could ask Genevieve to come down if you want to share some information. I'm just going to switch out the slides. Sorry, you said somebody else was. Oh. Perfect. Hold it here. Okay.
Do you want me to do the slides or you want to do that?
Oh,
yeah, it's you.
You want me to stand here?
Yeah, you might stand. Yeah.
Okay, hello everyone, and it's lovely to be here. I am Lisa Simpson. I'm Genevieve's mother. And I guess I just kind of want to speak a bit from the heart and tell you our story and what our journey has been. So in 1984, Jen was born. We were very thrilled to be starting our new young family and heading on our way to our lives. Early on, we saw something. We knew something was wrong with her eye, continually asked the family doctor, who patted us on the shoulder and said, now, dear, baby's eyes are often funny. We'll worry about it when she's 2. Then as time went on, we began to see that the pupil turned completely white. And so we phoned an ophthalmologist ourselves and made the appointment. And of course, as soon as he saw what was going on, we were sent right to Sick Kids. And so our journey began. The eye was enucleated, and we were sent home with no idea of how to navigate through this process. At that time, we were not sent to an ocularist. We were sent to the lodge at Princess Margaret Hospital, where a lovely woman named Peggy had drawers full of eyes. And it was a little bit terrifying to go into that unit because as you walked in, there were cases of noses and ears and glasses. And she would pull out a drawer and say, oh, I think this one might fit, and would put it into Jen's eye and send us home. And Jen's eye did not open for 6 months. The prosthesis never fit properly. And you can see her eye didn't open. It was very hard for me as I would go out into the public and people would say to me, oh my God, what happened to your baby's eye? Why does your baby look that way? In the summer, we went to a fair in our local community and they had a happy, healthy baby contest. And being very young and naive, I went and said, oh, can I put my baby into your happy, healthy baby contest? And the woman looked at me and said, I'm sorry, but I really don't think your baby would be a candidate for this contest. And I went home in tears. There was no one that I could speak to within our community for support. And so I reached out to first the Canadian Cancer Society, and they told us they were really not aware of children that young having cancer, and they had no real programs to offer me. I reached out to the CNIB for support and was told because she was sighted and only monocular, they had no programs for us. At that time, Jen was going into the hospital every 2 months for spinal taps, bone marrows, CAT scans, EUAs. And as I sat in the clinic, I would look around and look for other children with artificial eyes. And I would go up to the mothers and I would say, did your baby have retinoblastoma? And they would say, yes. And I would say, what are you doing about this? And what are you doing about that? And that time, that was 1985, 1986. There was no internet. There was no Google. There were no cell phones. And I would exchange phone numbers. And I would phone these mothers and they would phone me and we would talk to each other about what we were going through. And I eventually went to Brenda and said, we need a parent support group. And Brenda was 100% behind it and supported me 100% in reaching out to other families, in creating a telephone tree system, in putting families together so we could talk to each other. Brenda often would phone me to say that she had a new family diagnosed and as Jen got older, I would bring Jen down to the hospital and show new parents that this is what a child will look like. And she's doing fine. She can feed herself, dress herself, walk, talk. Eventually she was playing sports. As she got to be a teenager, she learned to drive a car. And I think it helped families to see that there was a future and that all of the horrid things that you come home from the hospital at first thinking, what will my child's life be like? This was an example for them to see. When we went to register her for school, we were in a small community. It was a very small school, only K to grade 4, maybe 150 kids. They came to me and said, we have no idea how to deal with a child with visual impairment. They sent someone to our home to assess her and said she's going to need a teacher's aide, which I didn't believe she did. But they did a whole assessment, came back and said, actually, she doesn't need a teacher's aide. They did a few modifications to the classroom where there was some level changes and they put some red tape on the floor so she could see the level changes. And we went on from there. Jen has battled throughout her life with being teased and bullied and called names, with people telling her she could not do certain things. She's a very talented athlete. We have had coaches say that being monocular would limit her ability to succeed at sports. Jen was a varsity athlete, played at university, played in a provincial tournament for Team Ontario. And I always say that if you say to Jen she cannot do something, she will prove you wrong and do it. So
Terry and I have that in common.
in common. Through our journey, we have met so many amazing people who have helped us to fundraise. Judy Kay was a woman who lost her sight to retinoblastoma, talented musician. She did several concerts for us to raise money. Jeff Healy did concerts for us to raise money. Families put on events in Tweed. We put on dinner dances, raising money, donating all the money to Brenda. I know she bought certain pieces of equipment.
That's a good one.
Yes, there's Brenda dancing with Dr. Phillips in the Tweed. I had many discussions with Brenda about the value of an eye and trying to save an eye rather than just enucleate right away, because Jen has struggled throughout her life with having an artificial eye and some of the issues that come with an artificial eye. At the time that her eye was enucleated, they did not reattach the muscles, so Jen has no movement in her eye, and we had problems with the implant migrating and falling to the bottom of the orbit. She had to have that implant replaced when she was 6 and some reconstruction work done. Then as a teenager, she really wanted movement, and she advocated for a relatively new form of implant and had that put in. Unfortunately, it did not give her the results that she wanted, and it brought a whole new series of problems along, but we got through those as well. I got very involved with the Terry Fox Foundation, and we raised a lot of money through the Terry Fox Foundation. Jen became a Terry's team member, went to schools throughout Ontario speaking to other children about having had cancer and the importance, and about Terry Fox and what he meant to Canada. Throughout Jen's life, I never wanted her to associate with being disabled, to being different. And I always wanted to support her to do anything and everything that she could. We always told her she could do anything and succeed at anything. I have watched Jen grow into a very strong, confident, amazing young woman. And her father and I are so proud of her. Throughout her life, the bullying, coaches telling her she can't do things, Jen has learned to advocate for herself and fight for herself. And she's now does that for her children as well. And for, I think, others. She is now in a healthcare field where she's working with people with traumatic brain injuries and advocating for them. In going through all of this, my dream was that when we had grandchildren, they would not have to go through EUAs. They would not have to go through the invasive medical experiences that Jen went through. And thanks to Brenda's amazing ability to find Jen's tumor and to test myself, my husband, and my son, and my grandchildren, we now know that none of us have the mutation, and my grandchildren never went through a single EUA. So that dream came true. I also had a dream of gene therapy where I sort of thought they could just find the mutation, take that gene out and put a new gene in, and RB would just go away. Well, that hasn't quite happened yet, but maybe it's in the future. Yes, I did go to Australia with Dr. Galley to speak at a conference, and it was another amazing experience. Throughout my whole time and all the events and time that we spent at Sick Kids, I will always say that the people at Sick Kids are amazing. The doctors and the nurses and the clinicians are part of your family. All of this took us on a journey to who we are now. The Canadian Family Association, Canadian Retinoblastoma Family Association, grew out of me talking to these families at clinic days. As time went on and Jen needed less and less support and less intervention, it was passed on to a woman in Saskatchewan, Peggy Gronsill, who took it on from there. From there, it went on to Catherine. And now Jen and David and Natalia, and well, the kids are taking it forward and moving it forward. And this is what it should be. This is what the legacy should be. We started it, we got it going, and now you guys are going to take it even further. And the last thing I want to say is that throughout all of this, Brenda has been a part of our family. Without Brenda, I have no idea where RB would be, where all these kids would be, where all of us would be. And so I think we all owe Brenda a huge thank you. And I want you to know that you are very much a part of our family. Thank you.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Cohen, and Dr. Damaris said I had about 35, 40 minutes to, oh, sorry. No, that was 3 to 5 minutes, right? Okay. No, honestly, I'll just be a few minutes. I'm basically going to pick up where Lisa left off. So building on the RB Family Association that Lisa has started some 37 years ago, Catherine Ramsey, whose daughter Marg we heard from yesterday, wanted to continue the good work that Lisa had been doing. I met Catherine in 1999 when I was working in Toronto as a lawyer. Catherine wanted to formalize the RB Family Support Group and to strengthen it and carry it forward into the future. Her concern, though, was over the kind of boom and bust cycle of small groups that formed typically around very highly motivated and organized parents, but which then fizzle out after a few years once their affected children naturally aged out of treatment. There's no criticism of those families, but Catherine was a grandparent. And I think because of that, she had a longer view. So the question was how to avoid reinventing the wheel every time some highly motivated RB family wanted to, do something or give back or raise money for RB research. In fact, you can Google and you can see different family groups that existed, but now the websites no longer work. So Catherine asked, how do we build on what Lisa and family had done with the RB Family Association in North Toronto to kind of capture and preserve the know-how into the future after the original founders had moved on. And it's especially difficult, again, where the founders were typically a single family or parent. And because I had legal background, I suggested to Catherine that a nonprofit corporation be created. So that's an entity that would have members and a board of directors. And those people could change and would change over the years. But the structure would exist separately, independently, and into perpetuity. So as Catherine said to me, sometimes you can go faster on your own, but you go farther in a group. And so that was her motivating force. And so we gathered in Lisa Simpson, Lisa's living room, Genevieve's living room, along with Peggy Gronstall, who is also a mom of an RB patient from Saskatchewan. And the three of them came up, they had to come up with a name. And they came up with the incredibly grandiose name, the Canadian Retinoblastoma Society, right up there with the Canadian Cancer Society. It's going to be the big leagues, aim high. So you could think of it by analogy as almost like imagining the RB Society as a bus. So the bus goes along its route, various passengers get on and off at different stops, and at regular intervals, the drivers complete their shifts and are replaced. So basically new drivers, new passengers are regularly boarding the bus and leaving the bus. So the nonprofit corporation that is the society is like a bus. The members, the directors are passengers and the drivers, and they can be continually refreshed. People stay on the bus for as long or as short as it suits them. On the board, as part of every new recruitment, we set out certain rules, and one of them is the no burnout rule. Stay and do as much as you can, no more, because there's an infinite amount of stuff that you could do. So that's the concept. where you create a structure where parents and survivors would drive their own bus and be the independent voice of RB survivors and families, potentially across Canada. It was also a more efficient way to capture ideas that pop up. Oh, hey, this is a great idea, but then how do you implement that? Now you have a place to discuss them among your peers, and you have other people willing to help build them. And these are ideas you couldn't possibly do on your own without burning out. But like with any bus, the RB Society needs regular maintenance and fuel. Our charity needs care and attention. So the board of directors, whom you met yesterday at the survivor panel, meets monthly. We have minutes, agendas, financial statements, a strategic plan that was worked on over many months. There's a calendar of events for the upcoming year. We have publicly available financial reports, annual reports to the CRA, and so forth. So as an organization, we are transparent about who we are, how our decisions are made, and how our money is spent. And you can see all of that going back for 2 decades. But what the society does not have is staff. We're 100% volunteer run, nor does the charity have office space in a hospital or a university, does not have hospital emails, no IT department, no graphics department to whip up fancy brochures, no real estate, no spacious auditorium like this. But we know people who do. And so the society intentionally piggybacks on events like this as collaborators, as contributors, and also as funders. So for example, the society is paying for the child life specialty services next door that Morgan is providing and has been providing with the children all day yesterday and today. And as you know, she provides far more than daycare. It's educational, it's stimulating, life skill teaching. Her craft is amazing. But what Morgan brings in itself is not actually research. So it can't really be funded out of a research budget. On the other hand, this is exactly what the RB Society does. We provide support and education to RB families and patients. That is a core mission of the RB Society. That is our sweet spot. And what's more is that as a registered charity, we were able to apply for a community grant from the Sick Kids Foundation. And part of that grant is being used to pay Morgan services. So I wanted to explain this to paint a picture. You have the RB Society that got a grant from the Sick Kids Foundation to bring child life to this crab research meeting. And that's what this RB Society has been doing for over 20 years, using its small but mighty voice to support RB families where it can. And so the children, be they patients or siblings, are having a fabulous and stimulating experience next door, an experience that they love, while at the same time, their parents are learning about new research that is relevant to their lives and their families. And they're meeting other RB families, and they're sharing information with health professionals. And so it's a relationship of reciprocity. It's a relationship that's also patient-centered. The Canadian RB Society brings its own unique perspective of the family or the survivor at the center. And so yesterday I saw a PowerPoint that showed what is central to research. And so I just wanted to show an illustration of how a family or RB survivor might see it. It's the very last slide. Here we are.
Is everyone?
Yeah. So you can see this is the unique view that the RB Society can contribute and has been contributing for over 50 years. The survivor, or is it forward, the other one?
The other way, yeah, that way.
Thank you.
That one.
Or the parent at the center. And
Did it go there?
there we
Oh,
go.
it did, sorry.
Perfect. Thank you, Genevieve. So, and you can see there's a lot going on. And you have the parent at the center, transportation to the hospital, dealing with oncologists, ocularists, the child's friends, child's school, parents' job, other children that they may have, their spouse, et cetera, et cetera. So the RB Society and RB Research, we are just one part of that whole solar system that RB parents are are dealing with. And it's not like a light switch that one of those things is either on or off. It's more like a dimmer. There's sometimes in the cycle or the trajectory where your whole life is 99% oncology. But then it moves. But all of those things are at play and hopefully in balance. And you can see this survivor model as well, like an adult. It can be different if you have a heritable version or not, but we are just one small part. So that's the unique view that we bring. And we've been doing that for over 20 years. As a bit of show and tell, I dug up from our archives a DVD that we made exactly 20 years ago. And this is from a symposium in 2003 that took place here at the Hospital for Sick Children, but not in this building. Oh yeah, so the nursing building, thank you, Dr. Damaris said the nursing building, there was an auditorium in the nursing building, which was demolished. That was 2002, we had a clown there. Yeah, you have a good memory. So this was the following year in the, is the old building still in use? No, that's also demolished or in the process. And we made a DVD out of that. And I just wanted to, I brought it because the 7th speaker on day 2 was Ella Bowles, who spoke yesterday. And the title of her presentation was, My Life with Retinoblastoma, Anything is Possible. And now she's Dr. Ella Bowles, PhD in biology. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here and speaking to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Brian. So as mentioned, we have had some incredible advancements and opportunities in this society over the last 35 years and the last 20 as a registered charity. So I wanted to provide, as you see, we're a little disjointed, but we're doing our best, some acknowledgement to those people who really have helped to keep this train moving. And of course, I think we know the bread and butter of many of these events have been that Dr. Galley would attend them. And so for families that wanted to have a personal experience, that was really a huge draw, was that, you know, you'd have the opportunity to connect with her. And so through that, we feel that we have formulated our own informal version of families. These are our clinicians, these are our doctors, these are people who are very important in our lives, and we spend a lot of time with them. But from my experience, at least, and I'd imagine many of the parents and clinicians, we don't stop to take photos together and glorify and enjoy those moments as we should. So today we have a photographer here who we would love to invite you to take some photos of your chosen families and these I guess, informal versions of our families who we've come together to support each other. So on the stairs, as you were walking in, and just outside the eating room, we have a photographer, Elliot, who's ready to take some family photos. Of course, I already warned Brenda, she probably won't leave that spot, but feel free to pull aside any of the clinicians that you would love to have a photo with who has been impactful in your life. Same with other families or members of the charity or members of CRAB. We would love to be able to offer that, and the photos will be sent out digitally after the event. So please utilize Elliot. He's very excited to be here. He'll be here till 4 o'clock till the end of the event, which could be coming up. But that is something I wanted to make sure that everybody knows. These are some of our events as they've been mentioned. And of course, the next one I just wanted to make sure that we highlight, as CRBS has been involved in many of the fights the RB game over the years. So the OHIP coverage was probably one of the bigger ones. It was a big legal case, and I know my mom was instrumental in helping to bring this genetic testing to be covered by OHIP, as it wasn't. Obviously, we've requested various things. I have newsletters at our table in the gallery that show my mom requesting parental support during EUA, parental support for more than one parent, because at the time only one parent could be present. And the hospital responded with, no, we can't do those things for you. If we did that for RB, we'd have to do that for all the people, and we can't. So we can see how far things have come and where they're at now. The new hospitals have beds with showers and wings. My mom slept in a chair for weeks. So I think we can all understand how charities like ours have helped to move some of these things forward and really advocate for the needs of the people who are actually utilizing these services. Brian mentioned a bunch of seed funding and grants that we have contributed to Dr. Galley's work, Dr. Damaris's work, the various researchers and doctors that are going on, working ahead in RB care, and we're so grateful for the work that they do. The Terry Fox Foundation was mentioned as well. I know there were significant grants given, which has directly impacted retinoblastoma research. And we were co-chairing the initial creation of the national guidelines. And I know Dr. Payton is working on a revision. And of course, that's something that we are happy to be involved in. So as I mentioned, capturing family photos. So we have our photographer out there, and we're very pleased to have Elliot with us. So please take advantage. And as our community gathering, we wanted to give the opportunity for us to mingle, to chat, because what we find at these events is that often we want to connect with each other. And instead of one person standing here presenting to everyone, there are lots of mini conversations that want to occur, which we don't always have time for. So we thought we'd utilize our time to go into the event room. We've pushed all the tables to the side, and the event room number 1 is available with a big virtual screen. So if you've seen someone on virtual who you'd like to talk to, you'll have the opportunity to go up and type and chat with them and connect with them. And of course, connect and chat with the other people who are here, who you might want to ask a question or discuss a personal experience, but maybe you haven't had the opportunity. So we're going to invite everybody to finish the day by heading to the event room. We'll have some chat. We'll have some celebration of our 20th anniversary as a charity and an opportunity to reflect on these questions that we've put up. So for example, some of the topics we wanted to discuss is, what did you find most impactful from this weekend? The second question is, maybe if you're looking forward, what would you like to see from CRBS? And that means, guest speakers or topics, types of events that would be beneficial to you or your family. The third is, what type of support is not currently being offered that you think might be helpful? Of course, this is valuable information to us. And then the fourth one may be hard, but maybe this is encouraging for those of us that are looking for more volunteers, as we always are, is how do you see yourself making an impact within the retinoblastoma community this year? Because of course, probably coming away from this event, everybody's minds are stimulated with things that we can all do to help move these exciting research projects forward, as well as opportunities to connect with other families and survivors. So I'll finish there and invite you all to come to event room 1, where we can continue our chat and finish our day.